Hey everyone, today we're going to cover issue number 15 of the Immortal X-Men, which was written by Kieron Gillen. And before I get started, I just want to tell you to stay tuned in until the end of this video, because this ending was something I did not see coming, and to be honest, I'm not quite sure how I feel about it. But before we dive into the story, I want to ask you a favor. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and a comment to help the channel grow. So with that said, this issue opens up in an Orcus's safe site with Selene approaching several guards. Now the reason why she is there is because at this moment, the guards are contemplating betraying their organizations out of fear of what is attacking them on Krakoa. So with that out there, one thing we have to understand about Selene is that she is a talented telepath, which means it would have been no problem for her to shift through their minds to look for clues. But with Selene being who she is, she rather enjoys extracting the data the hard way. For when she eats someone, she consumes their memories, which means she has the ability to know exactly who each of these individuals were, all the way down to their hopes, their fears, everything. Basically, she is able to see them in all their humanity. So systematically she went through each and every single one of the soldiers, killing all of them in the process while extracting everything she needed to know. So with the mission accomplished, Shaw enters the room and asks her what exactly did she learn about the situation, in which she replies by saying there were no fingerprints of psychic tampering left behind in any of them, which implies whoever is behind this is very good at what they do. So with that said, Shaw concludes, out of the list of candidates remaining with the ability to pull this off, Xavier must be the one behind it, which is something he believes he could deal with. So fast forward, we skipped over to the perimeter of Krakoa with Shaw's ships sitting at sea. Because at this very moment, Shaw is ready to send additional soldiers onto the island with his own custom psi blockers. Now, these psi blockers were made by himself to protect him against any telepathic attack that could potentially come his way. And to ensure the quality of the material, he had Selene test out her psychic abilities against his psi blockers, and as you may have guessed, they passed with flying colors. So with the team ready to go, Selena informs Shaw that she wants the external Krakoan gate returned to her following this operation, due to the fact that the bones belong to people she once knew. So with that out there, Shaw goes on to tell Selene to make sure she does not kill Charles Xavier upon his arrival, because as a businessman, he finds great value in Charles's brain. And just like any resource, he is open and willing to exploit it for personal gain. And on a side note, Shaw makes sure to point out the fact that everything that transpired that caused Charles pain was not originally a part of their plan. Because Orcus wanted to send the mutants to Arakko, but somehow things went wrong and the mutants are now nowhere to be found. So with that out there, when we pick back up with the story, we jump over to the place where the mutants have an exile. And as of right now, the only thing we know about this place is that A, it's a desert, and B, it goes by the name Nowhere and Now Hen. And when we get there we see Exodus putting his Omega-level abilities to the test. For he was able to use his gift to gather all the water vapor from miles around to create drinking water for the masses. Now, doing this was no small feat for Exodus, for he informs Hope that she will have to borrow his power and take turns with him in order to maintain the supply. So while that is going on, Hope couldn't help but to feel that her name is making things really difficult for everyone around her. But see, Exodus doesn't share that outlook, for he believes her name is essential because everyone here cannot be allowed to forget what her name means. For if they do, then they will have nothing at the end of the day. Now on the next page, we get an overview of the stranded mutants' plans through a data page. Now, when it comes to water, as we saw in the previous pages, they're using Exodus Omega-level telekinesis power to gather water to sustain the masses. So to maximize their advancement, they decided to travel by night to help conserve the water. As for food, they had to be creative. They used a few mutants with the power to generate edible materials to fight back starvation. Pretty much the mutants are trying to find a way to be sustainable until they can find the promised land. And speaking of the way in which they create food, we see it firsthand when a mutant offers Kafka a jar of glucose to eat while marching. Because methods like this are all they have to sustain themselves with. So anyway, Kafka turns down the gift because he is responsible for patrolling that night. Now the way he patrols is by flying a few hundred meters ahead of the main group to ensure there are no monsters on the horizon. Now over the last few days, nothing like that appeared to be a problem, and for the most part they seemed alone in the desert. Until today, for Kafka stumbled upon a group of Wolverines attacking none other than Mother Righteousness. And these Wolverines were not here to play, for they immediately charged headfirst into the convoy in an attempt to kill everything in front of them. And to their credit, they did just that until Exodus stepped up to the plate and once again did what he does best. Exodus stated that this is a time for testing, for the wolves has fallen upon them. And with little effort, he took hold of all the monstrous Wolverines and lifted them into the air and exploded their bodies into tiny pieces, effectively stopping their rampage. So with the people celebrating Exodus' victory, Mother Righteousness arrived on the scene. And one of the things she points out is that her magic is acting weird in this place. Which, on a side note, we all know is a lie, for she is acting like she is lost just like everyone else, despite her being seen in the previous issue talking to Shaw about how she played him. But anyway, Destiny quickly picks up on the Mother's arrival based off her voice, which is super recognizable. And not only is it recognizable, but it is also a source of tension for the precog, because every time the Mother is involved in a vision, there is always a hole, which implies a secret being hidden. So with that out there, the Mother claims to be a mutant with the X gene, and then she goes on to say the only reason why she didn't come forward with it is because she's seen the way they treated the Scarlet Witch. So just to be certain that the Mother is telling the truth, Hope uses her ability to sync up with the Mother. And to everyone's surprise, Hope indeed sensed an X gene within her. Now this X gene is said to be diffuse, much like Legion's gift, for Hope senses several abilities within her. So with the Mother passing the test, Exodus invites her to join their convoy, but this is when she reveals to have a base of her own in the form of a city. With that news out there, we jump back over to Krakoa with a dialogue from Selene. Basically, Selene is explaining how she made a deal with Mother Righteousness a long time ago, and almost instantly, she knew it was a mistake. But she was in a rush and infuriated, because the externals, her friends, were murdered by Apocalypse, and he used their bones to create the gate. So the second they have the remains secure, Selene is planning on bringing back her fellow externals. Because Selene couldn't help but be a little sentimental due to them all knowing each other for over 20,000 years. So while all that is being said, we see Professor Xavier emerging from the forest, and he is fully aware of the psi blockers equipped on each soldier. But see, the professor isn't just a telepath, but he also has telekinesis powers as well. And let me just say he was not playing any games, because he completely ripped every soldier into pieces and left their body scattered upon the island for all to see. So following this, we transition back over to Mother Righteous revealing how she found all this land upon her arrival. Now we all as the reader know she stole this land during the Hellfire Gala. And now we know why she took the Atlantic Krakoan island. She took it as an offering to lure in the 250,000 mutants in hopes to exchange it for their thanks. So with the promised land in sight, Exodus couldn't shake the feeling that the testing wasn't over yet. For this oasis in the desert is still a place of testing, and soon it will be a place of revelations. So he warns everyone to be careful for what they wish for, because the testing has just barely begun. So following that, we jumped over to something I didn't see coming. We jumped over to a crazed Logan. A crazy Logan that roams the desert like a wild dog in the wasteland. But see, these wild dogs are far from the greatest threats in this desert. For the desert is also the home of Satan. And at that moment is when we see Apocalypse in all his glory with Jean Grey in chains at his feet. Now whatever is going on, I did not see coming. But one thing I know for sure is this is not our world. This place could be a completely different world, a completely different Earth, at a different time, and even a different dimension for as long as we know. But I have to admit that this twist is gearing up to be something interesting, and only time will tell what impact this could have on the story as a whole. So down in the comment section below, let me know your thoughts about this issue and what predictions you could have moving forward. So with that established, I hope you enjoyed this video, and please don't forget to leave a like and a comment if you want to see more videos like this. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next review.